Truth wears no mask, seeks neither place nor applause, bows to no human shrine. She only asks a hearing. A very pleasant good day to you wherever you may be, and welcome to the University of Common Sense. My name is Tim Morrow, and our subject is thyroid and goiters. Now, there are a lot of people that suffer with thyroid and goiter problems, and they're basically the same thing. At the turn of the century, in this country, we suffered tremendously from goiters. That was one of the big things that went on. I'm convinced that the reason for it at that time was because of the tremendous amount of inorganic trace minerals that were put into the body by things like quinine, calomel, opium, sulfur. These were the drugs that were used at that time, and they were literally worse than drugs. They were metals, the absolute ore from the earth. Most of these are trace minerals. But the amazing thing was nobody ever used what was really necessary, because thyroid problem stems from a lack of iodine. Iodine is found in things like alfalfa, sea vegetations of all kinds. So the bottom line is it calls for what we need in the body. We need to put it in the body. We don't need to go to the doctor to find out what to put in our bodies to take care of the thyroid, because the doctor has no idea. And even if he did, he's going to give you something that is totally synthetic, that the body cannot and will not use under any circumstances. If you understand that the body needs raw materials, you give the body the raw material that it needs, it will do the rest. It doesn't need your help after that if you just give it the raw materials that it needs. Kind of like building a building. If you're going to build a building, you got to have the materials ready to build the building. Well, it's the same with us. Make sure that we have the right materials there, and the body will take it. If you give the body this much, it'll give you back that much. So it's individual, though. It is not something that is done collectively. It's individually. Why? Because we are individuals. We all don't need the same thing at the same time, even though the body is made up of all the materials that is in the earth. You don't have to have, everybody doesn't have to have the same thing. See, that's the trouble with the medical field, is that they give everybody the same thing, like it's assembly line medicine. It's amazing to me that when penicillin first came out, everybody got 1,200,000 units of penicillin. You know why they did that? Because that's what filled up the syringe. Whatever filled up the syringe, that's what everybody needs. But that's not the way it is. Dr. Jensen talks at great length about iodine in his book called The Chemistry of Man. And he has done a lot of research, a lot of understanding. Many of the things that I learned from Bernard Jensen. I am grateful to him, eternally grateful to him, for the things that I have learned and that I help people with. I'm an herbalist and an iridologist. I teach people the use of herbs and how to use it. If you want to know what an herb is about, you go and see an herbalist. You go to a doctor has no idea as to the drug that he gives. He doesn't even know what's in the drug that he gives you. You want to know something about drugs, go see the pharmacist, because the doctor is not the guy that can tell you what it does. He doesn't know the side effects. He doesn't know, and he doesn't care. He's told to administer this by the pharmaceutical industry, and he follows order. He's a drug pusher for the pharmaceutical industry. He himself is an uninformed victim, just like most of us are. You want to know? Learn for yourself. Your body is too great a product, too great a commodity to leave to somebody else. Take care of your own health. I like to read a few of the things that Dr. Jensen talks about in iodine deficiency, and see if any of this bothers you, because I have a whole line here of the things that happens to us when we don't have enough iodine in the body. Do we suffer from iodine poisoning? Absolutely. There are some things that I have been learning, which I'm always learning. I'm in my 19th year of this, and the only thing I know is I don't know everything, and I work desperately on learning all the time. It is not, I'm there, I've reached that apex. I am learning every minute of every day. Dr. Jensen is very good in talking about the chemistry of man, what it is that man needs in his body. He talks here about signs of iodine deficiency. He said, general people in need of iodine are lethargic. Listen to see if you're in here. Lethargic, dragging, and depressed. Frustrated, self-expression, lack of emotional control, fear of elevators, and extreme discomfort with anything snug around the throat are also indicators. Iodine may be, it says, monogolism and hyperactivity in children suggests iodine may be burned out. Even infertility and impotency are due to a lack of iodine. I've seen many a childless marriage produce children when this element was brought into balance. I've also seen extremely large families as a result of iodine deficiency. He says something in here that's very interesting, though. He says, iodine is one of the first elements consumed by misuse of metal process. So whenever we find nerve depletion or imbalanced emotion, we should suspect there is a need for iodine. And then he says something very interesting. I am convinced that every criminal is short of it. And you know, he may really have something there, because one of the things that I have found as I work with people with thyroid problems is, listen to what he talks about. He said the draining of the iodine reserves. He said the thyroid gland furnishes a secretion which destroys injurious toxins in the blood before the blood enters the brain. Isn't that amazing? So that's one of the things of the thyroid. The thyroid is an inch and an ounce. That's all. It weighs about an ounce. It has 1 inch. I read an article once in Reader's Digest, maybe 30 years ago that I read the article, and it stated that a nickel's worth of iodine is what stands between us and total insanity. A nickel's worth of iodine. Isn't that amazing, folks? That tiny little bit of iodine can keep you sane or absolutely drive you nuts. The other thing is that the thyroid is what caused us to grow. The thyroid can make a giant or a dwarf out of you. It takes its orders directly from the pituitary, which is the smallest and the most powerful gland in the body. It serves lots of purposes. It does a lot of the thyroid does lots of things for us. And one of the biggest signs that the thyroid is not working correctly is if you get a goiter. In a little bit, we're going to show you some goiters, what goiters can be like extreme. But right now, I want to tell you a few of the things that the thyroid has the responsibility of taking care of. Number one is it needs iodine. It's a very tiny amount that is in there. But when you don't have it, what happens is, like many small glands in our body, they will enlarge in an attempt to do a better job. Now that is when you begin to see the goiter show up. And I'm going to show you some of the extremes that happens when we look at the goiter. The goiter is nothing more than the swelling of the thyroid gland, and the reason for that is because it's swelling up to do a better job. So take a look at what you see on here. These are extremes, but nonetheless, goiters. And a goiter is nothing more than an enlargement of the thyroid. If you look to see where they are, the thyroid is enlarging in an attempt to do a better job. Why? Because it's starved. It needs iodine in it. He talks, Dr. Jensen talks about those people who live around water or live around the sea and how they don't suffer within it. But these are truly extreme cases. However, all cases of goiters is not this extreme. But nonetheless, they are there, and the person who has it is very distraught by it. They do not physically like the looks of it, and what it does to them physically inside is devastating. On the bottom, on the far right, the African woman down at the bottom, they're showing you what she went to get from the wild. That is a plant, and I forgot what the plant is called, but it is full of iodine. Because isn't it amazing that this, what we would call savage, knows where to go into nature to get what she needs to overcome her goiter. Don't ask me why she waited so long, but at least she went and got what she needed. That's what we need to do. We need to realize that we are responsible for our own health and that we need to do something about it. Dr. Jensen talks at great length about what the proper function of the thyroid is. He says, iodine, we might say, is the body's sanitary police force guarding the brain and mind with its office in the thyroid gland. Iodine guards the brain by destroying harmful toxins and increasing the assimilation of certain salts for normal metabolism. The process oxidizes toxic material affecting the brain. That's important. Well, that's important because we are working heavily on the brain when we use iodine. That's right. One of the things is that the slurred speech and all that, that's one of the things I'd like to read here to you. For those people who are wondering about it, let's take a look at what it does. This is for hyperthyroidism, the unsuspected illness, and this is the incidence of symptoms and signs of hyperthyroidism. Listen to it: weakness, dry skin, coarse skin, lethargy, slow speech, edema, a swelling of the eyelids, sensation of cold, decreasing sweating, cold skin, thick tongue, edema of face, coarseness of hair, heart enlargement, pallor of skin, impaired memory, constipation, gain in weight, loss of hair, pallor of lips, labor, difficult breathing, swelling of feet, hoarseness, loss of appetite, nervousness, excessive menstruation, deafness, palpitation, poor heart sounds, pain over heart, poor vision, change in the back of eye, painful menstruation, loss of weight, emotional instability, choking, sensation, fairness of hair, difficulty in swallowing, brittle nails, depression, muscle weakness, muscle pain, joint pain, burning, tingling sensation, heart intolerance, slowing of mental activity, and slow movements. Side effects. That's what happens when we don't have the iodine that we need in the body. How important is it? Very important. Even though the body may need in the course of a day only enough iodine that can be put on the head of a straight pin. That may be all that it needs in the whole course of a day. But folks, it needs it. It has to have it. And for it to operate correctly, that's the only way it can operate correctly. The thyroid helps you with the heartbeat. It regulates the heartbeat. It regulates all of the calcium that comes into the body, sends it to all the places that it needs to go. The thyroid is most important. And we see signs of it when we see the goiter. In the turn of the century, the drugs that were used at that time were awful. Not only were they awful, but because the medical field actually thought that it would truly take care of any so-called disease, it was given to us freely. I mean, we were given shots and shots of things like calomel, opium, quinine. And let me tell you what these were. These were not the drug like we know it today. This was actually the ore that came from there. It was totally and completely debilitating. It many times took only one shot to actually kill a person. But it was so abrasive to the nervous system that it would drive people out of their mind. Many people begged to die because the nuoc vomica, spelled Nuxvomica, opium, mercury, calomel, quinine, these were the drugs of the century. And in that day and time, they witnessed lots and lots of this great swelling in the neck. And they were given artificial iodine, which worsened the condition. Jensen talks about the fact that Switzerland, places inland, in Switzerland, you have to take iodine. They give you iodine. You have to take iodine. That's one of the requirements of the citizenry, is that they have to take iodine. However, they have lots and lots of incidences of goiter. However, if you go to Japan, you go to the Philippines, you go to the places that live on the water, they have no problem with it whatsoever. Why? Because they eat from the sea. They eat the fish and the vegetation from the sea, and that's full of iodine. But we have an all-wise creator who realized that everybody could not live near the sea. And so he created alfalfa and white oak bark. That's the bark from the white oak tree, and alfalfa. Alfalfa has lots of iodine in it, and so does the white oak bark. Lots of iodine in it. So just because you don't live near a big, huge body of water don't mean that you can't get all the iodine. All the iodine foods that we eat, seeds, grains, nuts, lentils, beans, melons, they are loaded with this. But remember, Americans don't eat that way. We eat white rice, white sugar, pastas, pizzas, meat, spaghetti, macaroni, cheese, all the things that contain nothing like that in it. And so we now suffer with problems with the thyroid. Are you aware that midgets is the result of not having iodine in the system? As you can see, a midget is actually a grown person. They grew like they were supposed to. But remember what I said earlier? The thyroid can make a giant or a dwarf out of you, because that's what makes us grow, a deficiency in iodine. And let me tell you, because people say, well, that's genetic. That is not genetic at all. In fact, it's almost impossible for a male and female midget to mate and produce a midget. It's almost impossible. Why? Because it is not genetic. It is violation of what we've done with food. They would produce a normal child. Why? Because that is not genetic. It is a matter of the things that we've done to ourselves with processed food. And had the midget been given at that time what he needed, the iodine that he needed in that system, he would have grown totally and completely normal. I'm not even sure that they can't change it now. However, nobody's going to do that. We all act as though it's impossible because it hasn't been done by a doctor. That's almost reason enough to do it, because it hasn't been done by a doctor. In other words, learning how to do it for yourself. The doctor's suffering from the same thing we're suffering from. His hair is falling out too. And he got a hearing aid and eyeglasses. He's 100 pounds overweight. When you get close to the guy, he don't smell good. That's not the kind of guy you want taking care of you. You want to learn how to take care of yourself. With all of the availability of all the foods that are available for us to use, it is just ludicrous for us to be as sick as we are. Doesn't have to be. There's no need for it. And the reason why we have it is because somebody else is allowed to take care of us. Let me tell you something, folks. I did that too. I did it for a long time. I let somebody else take care of me. They betrayed me for dollars. I only had good insurance, and that was the only thing that they were after, was that good insurance. Want to be well? You got to do what I did. You got to take total and complete control of yourself. Learn how to take care of yourself. Not only is it easy to learn how to take care of yourself, it's fun. Today, at 65 years old, I'm in better health than I've ever been in my life, including when I was 7. In fact, I'm almost back to where I was when I was 7. Hated to go to bed at night, couldn't wait to get up the next morning. Life full to the brim. That's the way we're supposed to live life, full to the brim. Don't let somebody else live your life for you, and don't you vicariously live your life through somebody else. You have to do it yourself. I had prostate cancer, and I got to tell you, that was 23 years ago. In fact, a couple of the doctors who said that if I didn't have the surgery, I would be dead, they are dead. I don't know what happened. Maybe they didn't have the surgery. But nonetheless, I am alive, and I want to let you know that it is not, I repeat, my cancer is not in remission. It is gone. In fact, at 60, I fathered a daughter who is now 5 years old. So the prostate is working. And why? Because 5 years of doctors and drugs and treatments, and I woke up one morning and realized I'm in worse shape than when I started with these people. And I abandoned them. And that was the minute that I started to get well. Listen to this. For Dr. Jensen talks at great length about foods highest in iodine. Listen to this. Agar, artichokes, asparagus, bass, beans, meaning butter, French kidney, and snap beans, blueberries, Brussels sprouts, carrots, chives, coconut, cucumber, eggplant, fish roe, garlic, goat cottage cheese, goat milk, green peppers, green turtle, haddock, halibut, herring, kale, leaf lettuce, loganberries. The kale was one of those things. Kale is one of the best foods in the world, and it is very high in iodine. In fact, any herb that is deep green, the deeper the green, the more iodine is in it. Then he talks about mustard green, oats, okra, onions, green and dried, oysters, raw, peanuts, peach, pike, potatoes, sweet and Irish, quail, rutabaga, seaweed, silver salmon, sole, spinach, squash, strawberries, Swiss chard, tofu, tomato, trout, tuna fish, turnips, turnip greens, watercress, watermelon. Many people who have kelp, watercress, kale, things like that in their herbal combination, that's what they're working on. They're working on the thyroid. Don't let the thyroid rule you. You rule the thyroid just by giving it what it needs. The simple remedies are the greatest remedies that there are. All you have to do is use them, and you use them with great success. Any one of those that I just mentioned, any combination of them or all of them work. Don't forget alfalfa. Back in the Midwest where alfalfa grows, it's the topsoil is so depleted. They know that alfalfa goes 40 feet into the earth to pick up all that it needs. But because the topsoil is so depleted, they now find alfalfa growing 250 feet into the soil to pick up what it needs to deliver to us. Now, if the herb can do that for us, then our obligation is to use the herb. And I'm going to tell you something. They've changed my life like nothing else has ever changed my life. It can do the same for you because the herbs have the same creator as the air, the water, and the sunshine. Does that work on everybody? Works on everybody and everything. We need to learn that our responsibility to ourselves is number one. That's why at the University of Common Sense, our motto is growing old does not make us sick. It is growing sick that makes us old. For the University of Common Sense, I'm Tim Morrow, and we sure hope you'll see us next time.